Hello everyone, and welcome to Behind the Bulletin. Today, we invite you to join us as we uncover a truly intriguing story that has taken fans by surprise. Kim Woo-bin and Shin Min-ah's midnight emergency press conference has sparked intense speculation across the media, but what exactly was the shocking decision announced in the dead of night? Stay with us as we break down the details, the reactions, and the unanswered questions surrounding this unexpected moment. Let's dive in right now. The first rumor arrived like a tremor under glass, so faint you could pretend it wasn't there. Until the crack finally raced across the surface. At 11:47 p.m., a single line appeared on an anonymous account. They're calling the press. Midnight. Emergency. No source. No proof. Just a sentence that looked too reckless to be true and too precise to be random. Within minutes, the line was copied, pasted, translated, and sharpened into a blade. Fans refreshed their feeds with dry mouths. Reporters who had already turned off their office lights felt their phones begin to vibrate like warning sirens. By 12:03 a.m., the official statement hit, short, sterile, and unnervingly urgent. Kim Woo-bin and Shin Min-ah will hold an emergency press conference at 12:30 a.m. Please attend. No explanation. No context. No softening words. The kind of message that doesn't invite curiosity so much as it detonates it. Outside the building, the city looked half asleep. But the sidewalks told a different story. Cameras arrived first. Then people, breath fogging in the cold. Hands gripping smartphones as if they were lifelines. The security line was tightened. The entrance barricaded. The lobby lights switched to a harsh white that made everyone's face look a little more worried than they meant to be. The usual chatter of entertainment events, jokes, selfies, squeals, was replaced by something sharp and tense. Like a crowd holding in a scream. Inside, staff moved with the clipped efficiency of those who had been told not to ask questions. A few assistants kept glancing at the elevator doors. Every time the metal panels shivered, heads snapped up. Every time they stayed closed, anxiety poured back into the room like water. The clock ticked 12:12, 12:18, 12:24. Someone whispered a theory. Then another. And another. Multiplying like shadows. A sudden breakup. A secret illness. A lawsuit. Hidden too long. The worst stories always spread the fastest because fear runs ahead of facts. Then the doors at the back of the room opened. And the temperature seemed to drop all at once. They walked in without music, without smiles, without the usual protective buffer of lighthearted introductions. Kim Woo-bin looked composed in a way that felt rehearsed. But the tension around his eyes betrayed him, like a man trying to hold a door shut against a storm. Shin Min-ah's expression was calm, almost too calm. The kind that makes people immediately assume she has already cried. Some were private and refused to do it again in public. They didn't wave. They didn't pause for the cameras to settle. They moved straight to the podium as if they were late to something far more important than this room. The microphones stood in a line. Each one a hungry mouth. A moderator cleared their throat. Thank you for coming on such short notice. No one laughed. No one murmured. The silence was so thick it felt physical. Shin Min-ah glanced sideways. Just once, at Kim Woo-bin. It was a quick look, but it held the weight of a decade. Then she faced forward. Hands resting lightly on the podium. Fingers perfectly still. That stillness scared people more than trembling would have. Kim Woo-bin spoke first. Voice steady enough to sound almost unreal. We apologize for calling you at this hour. A flash popped. Another. Then a storm of them. He continued, we asked for this press conference because we want to speak directly, without misunderstanding, without delay. The word misunderstanding hit the room like a match thrown into gasoline. Reporters leaned in. A woman in the front row tightened her grip on her pen until her knuckles whitened. Shin Min-ah inhaled slowly. We know many of you may be worried, she said. We would be, too, if we saw what you are seeing now. The phrasing was strange, what you are seeing now, as if the situation itself had become a spectacle beyond their control. A journalist called out. Is this about your relationship? Another voice snapped. Is it about health? The moderator lifted a hand to maintain order. But the room had already begun to tilt toward chaos. Kim Woo-bin raised his palm slightly. A gesture that asked for calm without demanding it. We will answer questions, he said. But first we need to say something clearly. He paused. The pause was long enough for 100 assumptions to bloom and rot in the space between his words. Then he said it, "We have made a decision that will change everything." The phrase landed hard. Some people visibly recoiled. The words had physical force. A camera operator shifted, accidentally knocking a tripod leg. The small metallic clink sounded loud in the vacuum of the room. Shin added, "We didn't make it lightly. Didn't make it alone." The last part, "didn't make it alone," made several reporters exchange quick looks. Alone implied others. Agencies. Lawyers. Families. Doctors. Police. Anyone but just them. Kim Woo-bin's jaw tightened. "Are things we have carried quietly," he said. "As we believed silence was the kindest option. Silence has limits." Now the air felt dangerous. Not dramatic dangerous. Like a teaser for a movie, real dangerous. Like stepping onto ice that has started to sing. A reporter stood. "What decision?" Shin Min-ah's eyes flashed toward the questioner, not angry, but intensely focused. "We are stepping away," she said. Stepping away? From what? The room almost malfunctioned in the face of that vagueness. Voices rose. Away from acting, away from public life, away from each other. Each guess was a dart thrown at a moving target. Kim Woo-bin leaned closer to the microphone. The sound of his breath hit the speakers, magnified. "Stepping away from the roles you think we're supposed to play," he said. "The ones that keep the truth convenient." Truth. Convenient. Roles. The words formed a pattern. And the pattern pointed towards something uglier than a simple announcement. Shin Min-ah's composure cracked, not in tears, but in the faintest tremor that ran through her voice. "We're going to tell you something," she said. "And it may shock you. We would rather face the shock than continue living in a lie." A shock rippled through the audience. Reporters didn't just want a headline, they wanted a safe headline. Something that would trend without burning everything down. This didn't sound safe. Kim Woo-bin's gaze swept the room as if he were searching for someone in particular. Or confirming that no one had left. Then he said, very carefully, "Tonight. You're making a public decision to protect someone." Protect someone. A new, sharper fear took hold. Protect implies danger. Real danger. Shin Min-ah's fingers finally moved, slightly around the edge of the podium. "There is a person," she said, "who has been pushed into the shadows because the light would have destroyed them." For a moment, the room didn't breathe. Then the moderator's phone buzzed on the table. They looked down, face draining. The moderator swallowed, glanced at the couple, then back at the crowd with an expression that screamed something is happening right now. At this very second. Woo-bin saw it. He didn't flinch. "I know you're being updated," he said quietly, as if addressing not just the audience but the entire machine behind it. "That's why we called this conference at midnight." Shin Min-ah's voice lowered. "Because once the morning comes," she said, "it won't be ours to control anymore." A reporter shouted, "Are you being threatened?" Another yelled, "Is this extortion?" The moderator tried to regain control, but the room had already started to fracture into panic. Kim Woo-bin lifted a small folder from the podium, plain, unmarked. "We have documents," he said. "We have evidence. And we have one decision left to make before this turns into something irreversible." He opened the folder. The papers inside weren't shown to the cameras. The way he handled them, careful, deliberate, like fragile glass, made them feel explosive. Shin Min-ah looked straight into the lens of the nearest camera, eyes steady, voice suddenly clear as a knife. "Here's our decision," she said. "We will not be silent anymore. A beat. And we are ready to name it." When Shin Min-ah said name it, the room seemed to lean forward as one living creature, an enormous animal driven by hunger and fear. Cameras surged closer. Microphones pushed up from the front row like weeds after rain. A reporter's hand trembled so badly their recorder slipped, clattering to the floor. No one bent to pick it up. Kim Woo-bin didn't rush. He didn't dramatize. That restraint was its own kind of terror, because it meant whatever he was about to reveal didn't need decoration to be devastating. He spoke in a low, controlled tone. "Over the last several months," he said, "we have been asked, repeatedly, to cooperate with a narrative that is not true." Narrative. The word carried the scent of scripting. Manufactured reality. Of smiling for a camera while someone else wrote the story. Shin Min-ah continued. "We were told it would be better for everyone. That it would be clean. That it would protect the people involved. A reporter snapped, "Who told you?" Wu Bin's eyes narrowed slightly. Not at the journalist, but at the memory. "People with power," he said. "People who thought our silence was guaranteed." The crowd stirred. 100 names floated behind 1,000 lips. But no one dared speak them aloud. Entertainment world had invisible fences. Everyone in the room had felt the electric sting of touching one. Shin Min-ah's voice hardened. "Tonight. Cutting those fences," she said. "Because the price of keeping them has become too high." Kim Woo-bin slid one document forward on the table, keeping it face down. "There's a reason this is happening at midnight," he said. "Because the moment we speak, certain people will try to move faster than the truth." Someone whispered, "This is insane." And it wasn't admiration. It was alarm. Then Shin Min-ah said, "The shocking decision is this: we are withdrawing from all scheduled projects and public activities immediately, until an independent investigation is underway." The room erupted. "Investigation into what? By who? Are you accusing someone? Is this connected to your agency?" Moderator raised both hands. But the noise surged around them. Kim Woo-bin waited until the shouting became ragged, then raised his voice just enough to cut through. "Requesting an independent investigation," he said. "Intercoordinated campaign of coercion and misinformation." Coercion. The word hit like a slap. Not gossip. Misunderstanding. Coercion meant force, pressure, threats. Shin Min-ah swallowed. And for the first time, glistened, not with tears, but with something sharper, like fury held in glass. "Someone tried to make us announce something false," she said. "Someone tried to make us confess to a story that would destroy us, and conveniently erase what they did." A reporter yelled, "What did they do?" Woo-bin's fingers pressed flat against a table. Anchoring himself. "We were approached," he said. "Materials, fabricated, edited, weaponized. We were told these would be released unless we cooperated." The room froze. Not fully. Breathing continued. Cameras rolled, but the emotional temperature shifted into something colder and more serious. This wasn't a sensational breakup. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was a public detonation. Shin Min-ah nodded once, as if making peace with the fact that she had crossed a line she could never uncross. "They wanted us to stand here," she said, voice tight, "and say we made choices we never made. They wanted us to apologize for a crime we did not commit." A reporter barked, "Who is they?" Kim Woo-bin looked directly toward the back of the room, to a cluster of suited figures standing too still. "Already know," he said. "And that's why you're afraid to ask the next question." A ripple of discomfort moved through the press. Some reporters glanced away. Others looked furious, personally insulted by being called afraid. No one could deny the truth of the moment. Everyone wanted the name, and everyone feared the consequences of printing it. Shin Min-ah leaned toward the microphones. "We made our decision together," she said. "Because we realized something simple: if we keep playing along, they will keep choosing victims." Victims. It wasn't metaphorical. It wasn't dramatic. It was heavy. And it implied there were others, people without their fame, without their protection, without the option of a midnight stage to fight back. Woo-bin's voice softened. But it didn't lose strength. "We are not the first people this has happened to," he said. "We just happen to be the ones who can say it out loud and be heard." Someone in the front row whispered, "Oh my God." Then came the moment the room would replay 1,000 times. Kim Woo-bin turned the face-down paper toward the camera's end, lifted it just enough for the headline to be born, not the details, not the full proof. Unmistakable framework of a legal complaint. Damp. The date. The formal language. The weight of it. Collective gasp. Shin Min-ah spoke over it, steady as steel. "Our decision is not only to step away," she said, "but to formally pursue legal action and support an investigation into those responsible for coercion and the manipulation of private lives for profit." Reporters surged forward. "In your agency, are you accusing a producer? Is this about a specific individual? Are there other celebrities involved?" Kim Woo-bin didn't answer with names. He answered with a sentence that made the room go quiet again. The air had been vacuumed out. "If we name them tonight," he said, "give them time to run." Shin Min-ah nodded. "We won't give them that," she said. The moderator finally regained control long enough to allow questions in an orderly manner. But the order felt fake. like painting lines on a road that had already split open. A journalist asked, voice trembling, "Are you safe?" Kim Woo-bin looked at Shin Min-ah. That look was a brief, raw honesty, fear, anger, determination, love, all braided together. Then he faced forward. "We are safer speaking in the light," he said. Silence wasn't protecting us anymore. Silence was protecting them. Another reporter asked, "Is this the end of your careers?" Shin Min-ah exhaled, and the smallest, saddest smile flickered and disappeared. "If the only way to keep a career is to lie," she said, "then yes. Let it end." Line tore through the room. It wasn't a celebrity statement polished by a PR team. A human statement, messy, brave, terrifying. Kim Woo-bin added, "But we don't believe this is the end. We believe it's the beginning of something that should have happened long ago." Outside, the night had deepened. More people had gathered, drawn by the roar of updates traveling through phones like wildfire. The press conference was streaming now into seconds and launched into the world. Viewers watched with wide eyes, feeling the thrill of shock and the nausea of knowing this wasn't entertainment anymore. Inside, the final question came from a reporter who sounded almost angry with disbelief. "Why do this now? Why tonight?" Shin Min-ah didn't hesitate. "Because tomorrow," she said, "they plan to speak for us." Kim Woo-bin's voice lowered, and the last words felt like the closing of a steel door. "We refused," he said. "So we came here first." Step back from the podium. No grand farewell. Dramatic pause for applause. Just two people walking away from the microphones that had turned their lives into public product, walking into a future they could not predict, but had finally chosen. Behind them, the room erupted, not with cheers, but with frantic motion, journalists typing, producers making calls, assistants whispering urgently into earpieces. The machine had been fed, but instead of a clean headline, it swallowed a blade. By the time the couple reached the exit, leaks were already being counter-leaked. The first denials being drafted. The first threats implied in carefully worded statements. It had become a battlefield, and the midnight emergency press conference was no longer a rumor. It was a spark. And in the harsh, unforgiving light of it, one truth was impossible to ignore: the shocking decision wasn't just that they stepped away. They stepped forward, right into the fire, while the world watched. As the night closed in and the echoes of that emergency press conference continued to ripple across headlines and social media, one thing became unmistakably clear: this was not just another celebrity story destined to fade with a morning news cycle. It was a moment of rupture, a line drawn between silence and truth, comfort and consequence. Whatever unfolds next, Kim Woo-bin and Shin Min-ah have already reshaped the narrative by choosing transparency over fear and action over compliance. The shock did not come only from what they decided, the courage it took to decide at all. And as the world waits for answers, investigations, and outcomes, that midnight moment will remain etched as the instant the story could no longer be controlled from the shadows. Thank you sincerely for staying with us until the very end. Time, attention, and curiosity mean everything to us. If you found this story compelling, thought-provoking, or worth reflecting on, don't forget to follow and support Behind the Bulletin for more in-depth stories, hidden truths, and moments that challenge the surface of the headlines. Until next time, thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.